Hello, Helen here. Welcome to another card in my Christmas card 2017 series. Today's card's quite an easy one, and it's one that you could change up a bit. I'm going to do poinsettias, but you could do snowflakes or anything Christmassy instead of the poinsettias. I'm starting off with a card base that's 14.5 centimetres square, and I've got another panel that's the same size, but I will be cutting that down so that's about 13.5 square. I'm going to do some distress ink blending in the corner of this card panel. Now this is my second attempt. My first one on the other side of this piece of card, I ended up dropping my mini blending tool and leaving a mark, so I tried wiping it off with the baby wipe, which worked, but it's ended up leaving streaks, so I turned it over and started again. I'm using Tim Holtz watercolour paper for this. It's a nice white watercolour paper, so I thought it would look really good with my poinsettias. Now I picked the colour Candied Apple Distress Ink because I wanted my sentiment and the inking to be the same colour, and I do have a glitter embossing powder that will match. I either would need to have a pigment ink or an embossing powder that's going to match one of the distress ink. I would have liked it to do it purple, but I didn't have any embossing powder purple or pigment ink, and really the red was the only one that I had, so I guess it's going to be red. So what I did to do my blending is I started from off the page and blended it in a circular motion onto the watercolour paper, and I'm using a fairly light hand and just getting the colour down to start with, blending it or softening it around the edges, and then I'm going to go back and build up the colour towards the bottom so that I get a deeper red. I keep going back to the edge and just trying to soften that as much as possible.
The first Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep.
Once I'm happy with the amount of red I've got on my corner, I've trimmed the front panel down. I'm just checking it on the card base to make sure that it's looking alright before I start stamping the sentiment. I'm going to use the Misty, but it turned out I really didn't need to do that. I was worried that because I'm doing it on watercolour paper and it's got a bit of texture, I wasn't going to get a good stamping with the wooden block stamp that I've got. It's quite an old sentiment that I've had for a long time, so sorry there's no brand name on it that I can tell you where I got it from, but I wanted to line up the stamp into the corner of the Misty just in case I had to re-stamp it again, but I got away with just doing one stamp in the end. Goodness, I hadn't realised until I watched one of my older videos how much the edging around my Misty had faded. I'm surprised at that because I've got it tucked in on a shelf underneath my work table, so it's not even in the light, but in the video it was looking quite red and now it's quite pink, so I'm a bit shocked at that. So I'm stamping with Versamark sticky ink, and then I'm using embossing powder with the brand name Zing. It's just a brand we have here in lots of different colours, and this is a red glitter embossing powder, so I'm putting that onto the card and shaking the rest off, and then I'll heat it with my heat gun. With the glitter embossing powders, it's quite a good idea to heat them from behind so that you don't flick any of the glittery bits where you don't want them. So I did that on the back, and it just makes a smoother finish. I'm putting a piece of craft foam on the back of the card panel before I put it onto the card base, just to give it a little bit of dimension.
Noel, 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 Noel. Born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east, beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 Noel.
For my poinsettias, I'm going to use a Sue Wilson poinsettia die from her festive collection. I used it last year on a card, and I'm going to use it again this year. I'm using some of the full flower, and I'm also using some of the outline flowers. Now I've cut them out with plain white card, and I'm just running my thumb and finger along each petal, holding it in the centre so that I don't tear any of the petals off, and just curling them slightly just so that they're slightly raised when I put them down onto the card. I'm going to glue them down onto the card just with a bit of glue in the centre of each of the flowers. I'm going to try and make them as random as possible, using some of the full flowers and some of the outlines, just to fill up that whole distressed corner.
Born is the King of Israel. Noel, 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 Noel. Born is the King of Israel. The first Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 Noel. Born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw.
I decided at this point that I needed one more of the small outline poinsettias cut, so I cut an extra one of those and put that on the card just to finish it off.
A star shining in the east, beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, Noel, Noel,
I decided the flowers looked like they needed something in the centre, so I'm going to put some white flatback pearls into the centre. So I've got a container of quite a few different sizes, so I'll get some bigger ones for the biggest poinsettia and some smaller. I think they looked about 6mm and 8mm, and using the jewel pick tool I'm going to glue the centre of the flowers and pop one of the pearls into each centre.
Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east, beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll leave you with a few photos and again some videos that you might be interested at the end of the video. Please subscribe by clicking on the picture of me if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up. I'd love to see that you like the video. And I'll see you next time with the next card. Bye for now.